Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight on another episode of Breaking Reality. My name is Joshua McGuire, and I will be your host tonight. And with us tonight, we have Kris Grant. We are going to be discussing the psychology of astrology and how it affects your daily life. And let's just get right into it. We'll turn things over to Kris. Kris wants to start off, and Kris, over to you, my friend.
Well, thank you very much, Joshua. I certainly really appreciate you for letting me come on to your podcast and to enlighten you and all of your listeners and viewers on a little bit more about how astrology really does affect every day of your life. I'd like to start things off in the right way by doing a chant. By propitiating, and I'll go ahead and translate what I'll say in just a moment here. I'm going to propitiate Ganesha, which I have a lovely crystal representative of here sitting by, of Ganesha, made of Ganesha stone, which is very lovely. One of my birthday gifts. Thank you, wife. I'd like to start things off by chanting to Ganesha, who is the deity of astrology and also of making things work right. So it's a good place to start. I'll then continue with a propitiation to the Guru in the Tibetan Buddhist lineage, followed by a cleansing through Vajrasattva, spreading compassion through Bodhicitta, and then ending off with a propitiation to Green Tara, who aids every being in existence. So we'll start off with that and this. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha Gate Gate Pare Gate Parasam Gate Buddhi Suha Om Ahong Benzaguru Pama Siddhi Hong Om Vajra Sattva Hong Om Mane Padme Hong Hri Om Taraduri Suha. And on that note, let's begin. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Kris Grant. I'm the autistic astrologer, as it were. I go ahead and make myself known to all the individuals around me and have been working into astrology for 6 years now. When I turned 40, I started doing this thing. So I'm 46 and I'm firmly into working on my K2 maturation, which we'll talk about in just a little bit here. And we are working through over 600 different readings that I've done up to date, and more so that through studies and studying of charts through different the classes I've taken and so on. What I wanted to talk about today is how psychology and astrology work together. Yes, of course, there's a predictive side of astrology. There's a medicinal side of astrology where we can see weak parts and strong parts of your body and where that affects you in your life. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now and go ahead and start things off here. Let me share this screen. Alrighty then, I hope it's being seen that this is Kris Grant, the autistic astrologer, and you can find me at astrologicalhealing.me. This is a website where you can find not only the services and interests that I have, but also a glossary of terms and other information that you can utilize during this broadcast or afterward to get a feel for the different information about what the sun means, what Mars means, and so on. It'll be available there, and of course, by rewinding the actual presentation. I'm most primarily wanting to talk about the Lajitadia of Ashtas, which is a Sanskrit, two phrases and two words in Sanskrit, and this stands for ashamed, etc., conditions, and the calculations thereof. Ashamed and etc., because there are a number of planetary conditions that any one of the planets, meaning Sun, Moon, Mars, Venus, and so on, they can be in different configurations that will make them feel proud, ashamed, delighted, hungry, thirsty, agitated, and so on. What's showing here is chart, and it is showing that the sun is being affected by the moon to 258 points in the green, and that the moon is being affected by Mars to 391 points in the neutral, meaning no effect at all. Mars is being affected by Mercury to a minuscule 54 points here, and by the moon to a much greater extent. It gets much sadder over here where Saturn is, because Saturn has the most amount of enemies and is most likely to be low functioning in a person's chart. This is just one of the grids that I utilize to find out the deep psychology of a person. There's a lot of different screens and widgets that are found in this software that I use, which is called Kala, Kala, which is time in Sanskrit. Anyways, the Kala software allows me to see a lot of neat things about a person, and it's all calculated. But somebody has to interpret it, somebody has to make sense of all that. And these red numbers indicate bad habits that you have of not letting life work for you, and the green numbers indicate good habits that you have that are working toward your potential, your energy potential, that is. We'll get into what that means and why that's important, and what that is about. I did want to point out that these Logitalia Avastas are calculated by themselves, the number, and then what happens whenever they're in the ring, so to speak, with all the other planets. The beginning of the Logitalia Avastas score is what's called the Shad Bala, which is showing here for the sun. And this is 7 strengths plus also what's called a Yuddha Beta, or planetary war, where 2 planets are just too close to one another and they've got to duke it out. In any case, that's not the case for this individual, and this indicates the first, second, third, sixth, and seventh, indicating order of the planets as far as strength, and each one of these things has a lot of meaning and a lot of significance. How you handle yourself in conflict situation, what tools, what methodology will you use to get out of that? Will you talk your way out of it? Will you fight your way out of it? So many details are found in this, just the Shad Bala itself. But that's not all. The Shad Bala has a result, a final result at the end of it. Each individual score is an important thing, but the final result also gives us a meaning, perhaps less meaningful than the individual parts. But in any case, we can see that for this individual that they have 128% of the sun, 500 points thereof, 155 points percent rather of the moons, what the moon requires. So these planets are going to be able to function properly. They're going to have enough in the tank to take care of their needs, and they're going to be able to function well in a person's life. We'll explain what that means and why, how that applies to you, because each one of these planets indicates a certain kind of vibration in the universe, and also applies to the person, because you're part of the universe too. So each one of these shows up in multiple different ways, and we can have different attributes and a whole laundry list, but not all of them apply in every situation. In this situation here, we're going to be talking about the maturation ages of the planets, but I want to go ahead and break off from that for just a moment here and stop my screen share while we talk about a few other things, first of all. And what I wanted to express to you guys is, to everybody out there, that I want this to be useful to everyone, regardless of your astrological level of understanding. That this should be this might be a bit of a wordy and informational, yet I hope that everyone listening benefits and is entertained in the process. So much about astrology is about yourself as a unique individual with unique experiences and circumstances. However, there are parts of astrology that generally apply to everyone based upon their age. These are factors in our lives that serve to shape and mold us into the best that we can be. At least that's the greatest self that lets the goal. It's up to us to not get in the way of that process. Rather, it's up to us to step aside and let our greatest self go by, as Manly P. Hall said in a lecture of the same name. This is perhaps a confusing concept for some, as we consider ourselves to be how we think and how we feel, when it's closer to the truth to say that we experience thinking sometimes and you experience feeling sometimes, but that these things are distinct, yea, separate from you. Yet they are experienced by you, and thus you are affected, changed, modified in some manner. The question to ponder is, where these thoughts and feelings arise? In each person, there exists a certain energy potential, which is your true state, which is a possibility. What will you do with your potential energy? Each of us and all of us should ask, are we spending our life energy in ways that squander our energies? Do we take the time and energy that is given and use it in ways that are not the true expression of our energy potential? Using the energies in a deranged fashion leads to dis-ease, lack of ease, which can become more and more solidified in the body. And this leads us, into the topic of medical astrology, which we really don't have the time for today, but would like to tackle on a different show there, sir.
We can make sure to do that.
All right. We need presently to find out what's happening with our potential. Where is it stuck? Why is it stuck? How to make it flow more freely? Yay, there are remedies and fixes, but that's also a long topic for another day. But there are plenty out there. Do you want to show you a quick glimpse at the website where you can find out much more of this? I'll just go ahead and share my screen once again here and give you a glimpse into my teacher, Ernst Wilhelm here, and his website, one of his websites, astrology-videos.com, where you too can learn all about that if you become a subscriber and so on. But in any case, there is 1 hour of content on each of the maturation ages for each of the planets, and another hour for the natural periods of the planet. So we're going to greatly reduce that today. But I just wanted to point this out and to let you know that you too can find out more about this and find out a lot about yourself and look at your chart and get a good feel for this. In fact, you can get your chart generated for free by looking at vaultoftheheavens.com, which is also one of my teacher's websites. In any case, I just wanted to make this aware so that anybody that has an astrological bent can come and join in the fun. It's a lot of work, but it's really a lot. It's one of the most meaningful studies available. Well, in regards to the energy that we're using, the potential energy that we have inside of us, these examining rather a chart for a person's where they are in their age, looking at those Lagitati Avastas, which are again the good and bad habits that we utilize that energy with to potentially, or we want to be getting our fulfillment from the world, but perhaps we're doing it in ways that are not really helping us or not really working for us. Then there's also the blind side, the weakest link area of your life, which is represented by Rahu and Ketu, but that's another long topic, which we'll get into small bits of today. But the north node and the south node of the moon are the unconscious parts of your conscious, and the conscious parts of your unconscious, the parts that you're actually somewhat aware of. But those two are a part of you. We need to be able to model that, and this model of Vedic astrology can very accurately model the complexity, the subtleties, the layeredness, and uniqueness of each one of us. Well, we need to realize that there is by looking at what I focus in on most whenever I'm doing a reading is the lagitati avastas, those particular areas there, because it really shows where a person is functioning well or not so well. It shows us where we're hurting, the parts that we're clinging and seeking something. In pursuit of those hurt parts of ourselves, we can cause ourselves a lot of problems. This is not done in spite, as these parts of us are simply trying to find meaning, security, whatever, in our lives. However, the result of this is just not as good as having good habits and using your energy in wise ways there. Now, you can say that, but it's your habits that we're working with here. And we need to realize that the good habits can be increased and bad habits can be, ignored, and eventually they fade away. That's the key of it here. So this is the best part of astrology, because there's a whole lot of astrology you just have to lump, you just have to take and just allow, because you can't get born to different parents in different place in a different country to do, there's a lot of things that I've already done. And it's just in the bag. And other things that are fated to happen, and this is true, but there's about 25% of your life that you have very much control over. This is part of that, or a great portion of that. So by identifying what's a good strategy and working toward that, and identifying what's a negative strategy and working away from that particular phase, will get you a lot farther down in life. And it will get these vibrations working correctly in your life, and therefore you will have a correctly functioning life. And wouldn't that be nice? So
I think
let's
that's
get
what we
on
all
with it
want
here.
is a properly functioning life.
I should hope so. And then that's exactly why we go to counselors, and especially why we go to astrologers, because the astrologer is able to see your roadmap and where you are now and where you will be. And there's just an extraordinary amount of information. And we'll get to some of this here. I want to make this more universal and not specific, because astrology for an individual is very specific and very individuated. But there are lots of parts of astrology that apply to everybody. Let's find out. Um, Pardon me. So I think that it is a good time to go ahead and share one of the screens here.
Alright.
So I'll go ahead and put up the natural ages of the planets. There we are. So we'll want to see that screen. And we'll go ahead and try full screen. Nope. Try again. Nope. Oh well, mostly there. In any case, I apologize that it's not full screen, but it's that way. In any case, we have on the screen here the planetary ages of development. And they are as follows, showing on the screen there. I'm going to go ahead and let you know that the moon, which is from 0 to 1, is a very foundational time period where we have a lot of things going on. Now, I have in my possession one of the books of my teacher, and I'm going to go ahead and read a bit from this to get the best flavor for each one of these here. And that way we'll get everything taken into place here. So we want to know that the moon rules infancy from age 0 to 1, and is the time of period when the child's nourishment is dependent upon milk, in the period in which the child rapidly grows. This is the first year of life, and during this period the child is completely dependent and can do relatively nothing by itself to resist the influence of the environment. At this time, the child is yet unable to walk, and therefore unable to mobile itself into where it can be in a better situation. The 6-month period, the middle of this age, is the high point of that age. It's during this that the most rapid period of growth has occurred. At 2 years old, which is the middle period for Mars, which is from 1 to 3, and certainly you're here to find out how you can will is being tested at this particular time. The will is the time period of this, and this is the time of the terrible twos, as it were, and this is the time that the greatest teething pain and the highest blind willfulness of the child. We have Mercury, which rules the ages of 3 to 12, which is when most of the bodily growth is occurring, and that this is when the communication reaches a high level at age 7.5, and the most commonly used intellectual skills such as reading, writing, and basic math are fully usable at that particular age. But that's not the end of the development, because at age 12, things get handed off to Venus, and then Venus and all the hormones and everything starts kicking in. And I should point out, and I should have pointed out, that at this time, at when the planetary age occurs, this is when you can utilize the energy of that planet most effectively. It's only once you have reached that particular maturation point that the energy of that planet is most potent. But that's in the next section here. We want to continue to talk about the natural ages here, because when Venus comes on and the hormones and everything starts developing the body even further, it's when you learn to make the best choices try to make the best choices in life there. And it's when the body is fully grown and developed that the physical strength also matures during this particular time. But there's another indicator for that, which is the maturation of Mars, which we'll get into in just a little bit here. At the age of 41, which is the middle point of Jupiter, this is when the individual's understanding of their life comes into the greatest focus. And this is when they really figure out what they're going to be doing with life. There's other reasons as well that we'll also get into in just a moment. Haven't noticed, there's a lot of layers to astrology and a lot that you need to keep in mind. There is Jupiter's age. Nope, we've mentioned that. And then we have the middle of the sun's age at age 60. And this is when the person often reaches the heights of their inspiration. It's when their life completely rewrites for other reasons, and when they can do the greatest work of their life, or maybe just fade off into the sunset. Who knows? Well, I do. We'll find out whenever we see your chart. But we want to know that the age of 95 in the middle of Saturn's age, old age firmly sets in, and wisdom, serenity, and perhaps peace could be the factors that you have, depending on how the condition of your Saturn is in your chart. So in the interest of time, we'll have to leave for another day the finer details of how to evaluate the strength and influence of each planet's effect of each age. There's just simply not enough time to catch into everything, because we want to go on to the very, very interesting things, which all of this is pulling toward. I do want to mention that the maturation ages is when we can fully use the energy potential of each particular planet. Prior to that time, only a fraction of its strength, and it does build up. Only a fraction of your strength is present prior. Slowly, until the maturation occurs, the strength of each planet will build. Jupiter at age 16 is our creative ability in our belief systems. It's at this particular time that from the birth, it's the goal to mature Jupiter. Biologically, Jupiter rules sexual maturation, which is when the healthiest babies occur, is at the sexual maturation of both male and female, which occurs at age 16. Prior to that, lots of problems with the babies. After that, it's pretty good until your 20s and 30s, and then it starts going down pretty much. But there's a kind of a special moment at that particular age when everything can work out. Now, that just because there's a sexual maturity there does not mean that psychological maturity is there, and that occurs much, much later, I'm afraid. But The many species, are quite natural and normal because many species are sexually mature before the age they're capable of mating. They simply don't engage in that. Um, the the other name for Jupiter is Jiva, and that translates from Sanskrit into life, as life will definitely find a way to carry on, and that's why it's the first thing to mature. This is also when your endocrine, your hormonal system, comes online, and also when your creative vision matures. Your moral structure, the capacity to think for yourself, to find a meaningful spiritual path for yourself matures at this time. At least you have the vision of it. You may not be actually walking at that time. Uh, this is the time of also your philosophical and belief systems start developing. Allows a person to know what's right for them, for the individual. And even if they can't quite state it as many words yet, they have this sense of what's right for them. Well, that's all wonderful and good, but it doesn't last forever. And then the sun comes on at age 21. So from age 16 on up till 21, there is a great amount of work done about the sun because it starts becoming mature at that time. So, depending on the events and conditions of the previous Jupiter period, we'll have a lot to say about how the next Sun period of life will go from age 21 up till 24. Perhaps your Jupiter maturation gave you a great deal of wisdom and understanding with a healthy hormonal system. Full physical maturation occurs at 21, especially so for males, with females seemingly completing this earlier. However, the body is still changing and will continue to do so throughout life. Any health issues that arise during the critical last year of development, age 20, will be indicative of inherent weaknesses, which will likely plague the person the remainder of their life. Back pains, in my case, because, oh boy. But in any case, the general constitution of a person during their 20th year can indicate their general state of health for the remainder of their life. Sun represents our ability to steadfastly commit to something, a person, a principle, idea, philosophy, career, etc. Also, our ability to handle our responsibilities and duties. During the 20th year, there is almost always a challenge that comes to our commitment to our goals, unless you have a perfect sun. You do. Otherwise, it's possible to be pulled away from your goals by others' commitments and people and situations that are around you. The sun is the king in the solar system, and thus at age 21, we are finally capable of having our own world, our own kingdom, however diminutive or far-reaching that may be. Isn't it interesting that in most states, this is when they allow you to make all the decisions and all the rights are allowed? However, in the 20th year, which is the cumulative year between up to 21, in the 20th year, one is likely to face an authority figure, a king or father figure or the government, that will block or not allow the goals of the individual. These are all challenges to one's personal domain, one's personal kingdom. And how you face that is going to set the tone for a lot of things. Now, the moon matures at age 24 and is based upon the foundation of the sun. One's 23rd year will be very stressful or relaxed. It's the final year, 15 to 16, 20 to 21, 20 to 24 to 23 to 24, and 24 to 25, and so on, that are the most culminative year. I mean, it's all building towards something, but there is that particular year is a big thing. It's it's difficult to the moon's a very subjective thing. So let me just say that if you this is all based upon the previous condition of the sun and whether you lived your life as a solid, reliable individual, becoming the king of your kingdom, then you can relax for the 23rd year. Otherwise, during those 3 years, and especially the 23rd year, things will pile up on the individual and make you feel worse and worse about your lives culminating at age 24. Yikes. So As I said, it's difficult to generalize what occurs during this time frame as the moon rules our emotions, our mentality, our ability to adapt, and so many other things. So this is a highly subjective experience, depending on a variety of factors, including the preceding planetary periods. As an astrologer, we can examine all these factors to make an educated guess as to what occurs inside a person's head during this time. It's still quite personal and personalized, with the moon's dignity having a lot to say about how this time goes. Each person's maturity will likely be unique as we begin to feel great or not so much about our life and how it's going. As the moon rules change, this is a highly transformative time frame. Just wanted to say here that the moon allows us to respond to life correctly. In Vedic astrology, the moon is a planet full of knowing, meaning that it's full of intuition, of inner wisdom. It's a receptive planet that allows us to wait for life to proceed with intuition when it is the correct time to take an action or a path. This inner knowing, this very feminine trait, is your higher self continuing to communicate with you the correct actions to take, to adapt to situations and circumstances to make the best of things. I just wanted to also say that if you have Saturn and the moon conjunct in your chart, it's going to make a person that's very hard to respond properly to life, and usually picks the most incorrect route that causes harm and chaos in their lives, most of the time. There's some few exceptions and ways to get around that if you do have in your chart, but it's most of the case because Saturn freezes the moon and doesn't allow it to adapt and change what it needs to. Now, speaking of adapting and changing, you won't have much time to do that because from the moon to Venus maturation is 1 year. So pretty much as soon as you figure that out, you figure out how to adapt to life with the moon period. You have to hit the Venus and work on that. And Venus is our ability to choose our path in life. Now, Venus and the moon are closely related in Shadbala, in the planetary strengths, as they work as a team. So if one is low, the other one can hopefully shore it up, and they support each other to work in a person's life to allow them to get the fulfillment they want from the world. Moon is how we feel about ourselves in life. Venus is about making the choices in life that we think are going to lead toward the greatest fulfillment. Again, for number one. So at age 24, we start thinking about what's going to make us feel fulfilled and start applying towards that end. Venus is much more than the planet of romance, relationship, and the wife in a man's chart. Jupiter is your husband, ladies. While Venus is still the planet of your relationship for the ladies as well. So Venus is much more than all of those things. It's about making choices. Choices that get your needs fulfilled in a, hopefully, win-win way. This is the critical time period of choosing a path in life. Hopefully we'll have a functional Venus that could make the right choices, leading to the right life for you. All other things being equal, as there are a lot of factors that can affect each and every single one of these planets. But if things are not so great, then this can be a stressful time and can set one up for a lifelong habit of using Venus inappropriately, trying to get our nourishment in all the wrong places. Nourishment both in the sense of food as well as love. Venus is the primary planet in the D9 or Navamsha, the original chart. The D9 chart is where we see your ability to commit, to be anchored to your proper path in life, especially to something larger than yourself, be that a marriage, being of service to others, your career, or a monastery or an ashram. Can you commit to something more than just moi, right? So, this time period is when a person really becomes mature in what they want from a relationship, be that a romantic partner or any of the previously mentioned paths. Especially so in a man's chart. because it's at this time that they decide that this is what I need in a partnership, making them capable of being in a long-term relationship, capable of knowing what it's going to take to make to make other than them happy in a relationship. Women figure out what they want in a man during their Jupiter maturation at age 16, as Jupiter rules the husband in a woman's chart. And again, the Venus rules your relationship. But happy quinceanera, ladies. Repeating for clarity, it's at this time that the man or woman gets a clear picture of what they want in their life, and that will bring fulfillment. That does not mean that they get it at this time. However, the vision is set and it will play a role in the rest of their life. Perhaps it's best for guys to not marry until 25, as it's then that they know what they need, which may have been different from what they wanted previously, might prevent some regrets in life. I bet that the statistics will bear out, showing that marriages with men younger than 25 tend to not work out in the long term. Yeah. I see you, Mr. and Mrs. 50-something odd years of marriage with your high school sweetheart. But how often does that happen, really?
I mean, it happened
But
with my parents, so.
it happens. I know it does. Not the percentages. In any case, I before we leave this topic, perhaps it's best to wait for at least another year, until at least the year 25, before inheritances are awarded. Ever seen what happens to a person that gets the money a little bit too early? And not usually a winning combination. I will point out in a little bit of astrology talk here that Saturn affects Venus very strongly because they have a friend relationship, and Saturn affects Venus when he's conjuncting in the same sign as 3 houses behind the Venus, 10 houses away from, or 7 houses away from. So, just so you know.
And that is all foreign language to me right there, because I do
Mhm.
want to just say, folks, I don't know much about astrology. I'm learning as much tonight as most of you are if you don't know anything.
Well, it's a good place to start to actually have a clean slate, because there's a lot of misconceptions in the world there, and we'll go over it at another time what the hows and whys and the nuances of it, and answer any of the questions that people have. I'm more than willing to play the Ask an Astrologer game. But let's try to finish up here so everyone can look at their charts and think about what's been going on in their lives during certain periods of time, because we just got to Mars now, which is one of the more important maturations, like from 27 to 28. This is the time period of some of the most extreme events in a person's life.
Oh, that's not on the chart here.
Yeah, some of these will really start to hit home. Most of the stuff that I tested on my chart first, and if I go, oh wow, I write that one down.
Well, you said we was going to Mars on the slide there. It says Mercury's next. I was a little confused. I was lost.
Well, perhaps that's a typo, and we should have had Mars in there.
Everybody pretend that Mars is between Venus and Mercury. And it's from what?
Has the score of 28.
Yes.
And the transformative year is 27 through 28.
So there we go.
I'll fix that in postscript. This is the Mars period, which is before Mercury, is an important period where a lot of extreme events happens in a person's life. Now, there is also a Saturn return that occurs just around this time, and sometimes gets the blame this time period. However, that's just 1 year that the Saturn return happens, and the actual event is usually less than 2 weeks in length. Saturn returns are a huge event in someone's life. There are lots of variables that affect the exact return date, but it's around 29 and a half years of age. And it's a solid time of learning how to adult, of picking between one choice that sucks and another choice that really sucks.
Tanner,
and what are you going to do? And that's what life is ultimately, or part of life. And you need to find a way to deal with that mentality. And that's what you learn at age 28. Hint, be an adult about it and face forward into it. Don't shirk off on this one. But we'll talk about Saturn returns at a different time, because I wanted to let you guys know that at age 28, this is the peak period for one's physicality. This is when you're going to be as strong as you're going to be. This is it. So just so you know, it's also a peak time for a person's ability to strategize and set goals to be strive for. That really matures at this time period. This and then the adulting, quote unquote,
Chris,
that occurs.
Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Absolutely.
I want to apologize to everyone. I thought I had my mic muted. I was actually had Discord muted instead. I was yelling at my dog to lay down because he was digging at my leg, just wanting me to hold him in attention. So I want to apologize to everyone for yelling lay down.
Right. Well, I didn't hear it, but
well, it's because I had muted Discord. I thought I had muted my mic, and I didn't. So you didn't hear it, but everyone else did.
Well, hopefully that didn't disturb them too much. And then we'll just
I just wanted
pick
to
things back up.
I just wanted to briefly apologize for that, folks. I am very sorry. He's just acting up. He's wanting attention tonight, and I can't hold him the whole show because I got to be using my hands.
Understood. Let's carry on with the show and let's get things wrapped up here because
Excellent.
we're getting along in time. So that's your ability to strategize and set goals to be strived for really matures at the age of 28. That plus the adulting that occurs with Saturn's return will start you firmly on the path to being an adult. The Mercury Maturation is another important time because this is when all the previous maturations that you've had up until age 31, and you'll have your skills put to the test. You'll be faced with situations that will require you to try new things and to somehow find the solution. That's if you can find if you have a good functional Mercury, that is. This is the time when your communication skills and friendships will be put to the test. This is also the time to focus upon the skill or skills that you'll be most interested in of all the possibilities that life has before you. It's the time to narrow down upon those areas that you want to most pursue in life. The Saturn maturation, which occurs at age 36, is when you truly grow up and mature. If it's afflicted, this is a difficult time period, as Saturn is your burdens, pains, shames, and sufferings. How are you going to bear these? How difficult of a time is it going to be for you? Will you be able to rise above these and still do the great things in life? During this time period, and depending on your Saturn's dignity, you can face some of the worst situations in life, and this will make or break you. However, just as the hammer blows upon iron can create some wonderful shapes, thus too does life hammer upon us to break open the shell so that the light might stream forth again. So, as non-physical entities, the final two points of this, of Rahu and Ketu, represent the road of our destiny. At age 36, we're finally capable of as capable as we're going to be physically, but the road that their energy potential must flow is not known at age 42, and really not even till age 48. So we're given 6 years or so to be able to become capable of our full bodily potential before age 42. And become aware of our destiny and the path that we need to grow ourselves into, our quest, ride of our lives, of our potential destiny. So it's at age 42 that we are ready to walk the new path of our destiny, which we do, stumbling and struggling all the way to our destination, barely glimpse. However, it's on this path that we're meant to travel, which you will if you strive and struggle. Rahu is much like Saturn, who is the planet of hard work and bearing burdens. Expect the unexpected as difficulty will be placed in front of you. Surmount all that your previous energies have come into bear with this newest obstacle. Rahu is a difficult planet that brings about some unexpected change. And it's not truly a planet per se, but it is a calculated space and it does actually affect us. But we don't have time to fully go into that. But I do want to let you know that the placement of the Rahu, which is the north node of the moon in Western parlance, or in K2, the south node of the moon, is shows the path that the person needs to walk. One may know of your path, but until age 42, you're not ready to fully embrace and express that path. Your full potential is reached at 42. Really, it's at 48. Because at 48 is a time of completions and resolutions. Again, this is another highly subjective area wherein your inner psychology will be put to the test. However, I can firmly attest that life gets better after age 48. All the tests are over. You can now, well, begin to live life. In fact, it's from 50 and onwards that one truly can begin to make choices in their life and themselves fully for the correct reasons. So, I don't know that we have much time to go into any other things right now, but if we have any questions perhaps from the audience or yourself, we can go into that right now and, leave the other areas of astrology for another day perhaps.
Well, Kris, we're only 45 minutes into the show. It's only 7:45 right now.
Oh, I did the time zone incorrectly?
Yeah,
All right.
We have plenty of time if you want to go into more things. It's up to you, though.
Well, let me go ahead and briefly pull up something here because we can talk about the Kakinis Technique, which is a really highly interesting technique whereby we look at a person's name, first letter of their name. It doesn't matter what language.
This is what you was telling me about earlier today. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm interested in this. We haven't done this with me yet. I'm kind of curious about this.
Well, we'll see here. I prepared because there is some math involved. It's all math, but I did prepare a couple of charts prior for other people.
Right.
And we can go and look at this because it's not personalized information, but it does have a lot of information to share for anybody that also has the same first name. Now, I'm going to go ahead and blank out this person's name for privacy reasons and go ahead and share my screen once again. Because this is the screen. Because this I'm showing on the screen is the brief spreadsheet, very humble. I'm sorry, I'll work on it. A humble spreadsheet that allows me to keep track of what's going on for anybody whose name begins with M, as in Mike. So people with M names, perk up because this counts for you. Now, every single letter can be applied here, and there's quite a bit of nuance between an N that's a retroflexive, where the tongue wants to come back toward the labial in the mouth whenever you say that N word, as in New York or several other ones. Because we had to remember, this is from Vedic, from ancient India, so these are a lot of different, they have extra vowels that we don't have, and consonants too, so... Anyways, I tried to make this as friendly to the English audience as I could by taking out the THs, the GHs, and the Rs that don't sound like an R, and all the other languages and letters that are there possible. But based upon your
Kris,
first...
that screen's disconnected for some reason.
Right? Well... based upon the first letter of your name, and go. I don't care if you changed your name, if you got it, if a guru renamed you, you don't know your first name, I don't know. But the fact is, whatever your first name is, the first letter of your first name is all this is based upon. And it's highly important because this sets the tone for what you can and cannot do.
Kris, I got a question on that then for a second, because there was an instance with my father. Now, this is just kind of a curiosity question. My father, for the longest time, his first name is Stephen, his middle name is Galen. Well, that's what he thought. When he actually looked at his birth record, it was Galen Stephen. But everyone went, even his mother, went by Stephen Galen for the longest time. So I don't know if it was a typo or what on his birth certificate, but he went to apply for a passport and had trouble, and he found out why. So
Yeah.
would this go with the S for Stephen or the G for Galen with him?
I would go with Galen because
Okay.
that was the intent at birth, at least, and whatever happened after that.
Okay. I was just kind of curious because, that's what he
Good
had always
question.
went with because, and he didn't find out until, God, I think he was in his 50s when he found out.
Right.
And then he went and got it corrected. He actually done an official name change so it would be Stephen Galen, so he didn't have to go change all of his records and everything. But even his social security card came in saying Stephen Galen.
Right, but you fill that
Yeah.
out after the fact, right?
Well, I think it's
At
supposed to
least that
go.
was in my case.
I think it's supposed to go off of your birth records and stuff too. I think it's supposed to match up with your birth certificate. But yeah, it was a strange thing. But it was just it
Yeah.
was just a curiosity question.
Indeed. Well, I can't answer most of those because even though I was born here in Michigan, I was actually raised in Canada. But that's a long story. Perhaps we'll get into it at some point. I do want to say that I moved around an extraordinarily amount of times, and I wished I had known this technique. I wished I had known which city names to shoot for, to direct myself toward. Chose all kinds of other ways and reasons to go to a particular city, but in those cities, I may or may not have come ahead. So let's look at this here and interpret what's going on the screen here. In the B column here, we have the various numbers that a person can have vis-a-vis the items in the second column, which are the possible names of a city. So based upon the letter M and the city of, and a vowel for a city name, value is 5 for the person. And when calculating for the vowel city for the name of M, a person, we get a value of 8. So in this case, living in a town for an M person like Mike or Marie or Molly, those kinds of people would not be advised to live in a town beginning with A, E, I, O, so on and so on. Those towns, they will find themselves having less money or less time, both. They'll have one or the other that's not as much as they want to. They maybe they have enough money, but that's because they're working so much. They got no time. They have plenty of time, but that's because they ain't got a job and they ain't got no money. You know how it goes. But in any case, talk about the darkened area here, which I specifically darkened out because for one reason I'll explain in a moment, that those destinations beginning with K, G, and N are inappropriate for this person beginning with the letter M. That's also relationships with people's names beginning with K's, G's, and N's. Those relationships will also not be possible in the same way that it will not be possible for you to move to a city with those particular letters. Now, I'll just point out here, and this is something that I'm trying to solidify for myself, because this is a fairly new technique for me, that how to differentiate one N from another N from a different N, because there are several of them there. And the astute and very sharp amongst you may have noticed there's a couple of letters missing. And there are, and there's a way to cover for that. All of the extra letters are covered into the moon, the final category of sibilance. and the S's and H's of the world. Santa Monica, for instance, San Francisco, and so on. But based upon the person's name, which in this case is M, which puts them into the 6th category here, just because we got to name something. But in this category of P's, B's, and M's, which is, if the sharp and astute among you will also see that stuff that works for M's also works for Bobby's and Paul's as well. So really, this is for M's, P's, and B's are all covered by this one particular chart. So all of y'all can perk up at this point. But in any case, any Pauls, Bobbies, or Mikes out there, they would have difficulty with the names that are 5 places away from their particular thing. So counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, leads us to K's, G's, and N's. And I don't care how hard you try to move to a city like this. Just won't work out. The rent won't be there. You won't be able to get the moving. It's just problems. Just won't work out. Now, the other cities mentioned on the graph here, the yellow ones are negative numbers. They're not in the person's favor. -3 in this case, -7 neutral, which is -1 and -2. Those are all cities and places that M's, B's, and B people do not want to be living. Instead, they want to live in C's, G's, and N's, and the T's, D's, and N's are where the retroflex of the tongue steps back, which is New York City, N's of that nature, New Orleans, and the sort. These people, not the best. I mean, they still can get 3 here, but still, they will be getting ahead. They will have enough money and time and resources to feel contented in their particular city or what they have going on in the situation.
Kris, what is the value range that someone can get on the max on column G with this? I mean, is it like a 0 to 10, or is it
1 to 8 in this regard?
Okay.
And only here. I will state that it's kind of odd that every other value in astrology is between 0 and 60, and that could be -60, but it's 60 points. And I think this harkens back to our Sumerian forefathers that counted everything in base 60, or many things in base 60. It's where we get our clocks from, y'all. So still really useful. In any case, we want to recommend that M's, P's, and B's would want to live in C's, G's, and N's, and T, D's, and retroflex of N kinds of places there. Most of the dentals the dental N's are only found in places like India, where they have NG words. And I guess that's some Asian, a lot of Asians have NG letters. And it's about the sound. So this will work for an Africanese, work for a Chinese person, work for any language. Just have to do a little bit of a translation, as it were. So, yay and great. That's the P's, B's, and M's. Let's look at this is... do we have here? We have S's, which are also H's and sibilant. Righty then. So let me stop a share to start a share onto something else. There we are. So this is another no, I apologize. That one is not what I want to show. So let me look for just another moment here. In the meantime, did you have any other questions that might have popped in from the chats?
No. Um, not
All right.
not right now.
All right. I seem to have misplaced the other example that I had prepared. So, in that case, we will move on to talking about something a little more interesting, I think. So I'm going to share a different, well, you've already seen this screen here. Hopefully we can get it to go full screen.
Ah, yes, back to this.
Yes. All right, let's try there. All right, so we have already looked at the Logitati Avastas in one other situation already. Oops, sorry. We've already looked at them in one other situation already, and we want to focus in on what is going on here and what we are looking at in the psychology of a person. And again, this is my favorite place to be because from here I can glance down at the bottom line and get a bird's eye view of what's going to be ailing a person. In this particular situation, this particular person's situation, Saturn at negative 599, just call it zero. Not quite enough, not even close to the 300 points that Saturn requires. Didn't quite have that to begin with, so this is definitely an area of life where this person suffers. They have issues and difficulties with handling the suffering in their life, and also moving on from the past. There is quite a bit of issues with mental, emotional issues of self-esteem is shown here. A lot of, with the sun showing on to Saturn with 129 points. It's quite a bit of it. This is a route to mental disease, possibly even Alzheimer's later on in life. Maybe not so much for 129 points, but above 200, it's quite possible. It's quite possible. There's much more of a clobber here of 556 points of the moon on Saturn. So the moon is hurting Saturn, and it's giving a lot of emotional issues for this Saturn. Mars, it represents the energetic body of the person, and this is an area of life where, oops, this is an area of life where the person is going to be affected by energy. They're not going to be able to handle things as well as they. Things will affect their energies, and this will, if energies being affected, will affect their emotions, and their emotions being affected will make them appear to be crazy, deranged, or otherwise not mentally stable. It's actually rather hard to make one crazy, and it's easy to see it in a chart. And again, it's hard to do that, but it is possible. But to look and act out of control, it's very easy, very simple. And many other people might judge you harshly as a result of that, but that's all right. So I wanted to share that the specific indications of Venus in this particular person's chart. I wanted to share one particular square here and to show what it is about that particular condition that makes it so particular. What's specific about that? And I will say that every single one of these squares indicates something quite a bit different. But when the moon starves, quote unquote, Venus, whenever it's aspecting in an enemy relationship, it really hurts a person. but it's quite easily fixable. So, yay. It's one of those habits that you have that you can fairly quickly and easily take care of. Yeah, habits. So we'll see. Now, this is a very, 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 very common thing, and is usually able to be overcome by the person on their own accord. I'll just point that the birth chart is that. It's the chart of your birth. It does not. It is not getting updated for where you are in your life right now. And for that, we have to do a little bit of trickery and a little bit of adjustments, as it were. But because these represent the good and bad habits of a person, that's something that you can observe in yourself and you can make a difference. And you probably have, especially as you get on in life, 40s, 50s, 60s. Most of these things that I talk about are less like you, but if you think back earlier in life, probably it's very might be like you. Now,
Well,
this is very highly subjective.
well, Chris, it's like we was talking about my chart. What was it yesterday? You was
Sir?
reviewing some of this, and I believe it was that particular square that deals with relationships. Correct?
Is definitely about relationships, being that Venus is the planet about relationships, and whenever the moon intersects with that, and you have an unhealthy, you try to get your nourishment from relationships in an unhealthy way.
Right.
Notice the color is red. Now, this is very common, and I have this in my chart, and so does Tom Cruise. This is the Tom Cruise disease. I euphemistically call it that. Please don't sue me, Tom. But
Please don't sue me, Tom. He said it, not me. No.
it's
No.
very common. It's in lots of people's charts. It's in my chart.
Well,
And for me,
I was just going to go ahead and say that when we was talking about it in my chart yesterday, when you and me was having the discussion, I had mentioned, because, I had a previous marriage that ended in divorce, and it was not necessarily a healthy relationship. It wasn't a positive relationship. But coming
mhm,
through that relationship is where I learned what I wanted and did not want in a relationship so I could look for, those key factors in future partners.
exactly. And that's the relationships come in really two flavors, basic flavors. And that is a relationship that builds the two people together and they get stronger together, or it's a relationship that builds you to be stronger for somebody better match for you. And that's the case for in your situation, that it made you know what you don't want. And the power of no is really important. And you really have to know when to say no. It's important. The brake and the gas need to be utilized in the vehicle, right?
Right.
And this is one of the ones that is very commonly seen, and so it's one of my favorite ones to talk about, and so that's why we talked about it yesterday as well. Um, so in a relationship, this is all about the person's needs as the most important thing in the relationship, not the other person and not the relationship, because there's three people in this thing going on. It's him and her, or two people plus a third, and the third is the relationship, and the relationship is actually more important than your particular needs. There's a strange balance that needs to be taken in this regard, but we need to have a trifecta, a three-way relationship between the two people and the actual needs of the relationship. And sometimes you need to take one for the team and you need to make it happen. But the goal, as always, is a win-win relationship, which we'll be talking all about here in this situation. Because as you might not have noticed, that relationships are about being a part of something larger than yourself, about being with somebody else. So it's not just your needs and what's going on with you. It's about somebody and something larger and more than yourself. So it's about being a part of something greater, larger than yourself, which keeps you from feeling from feeling and thinking too much about yourself and more about the larger, bigger picture of things. Do remember that the Navamsha, the D9 chart, which is the chart where we look for marriage and see if that's going on, is is ruled by Venus. So relationships and being on the path of the correct path of your life, being in relationship with that is an important thing. And if you have too much of moon starving, like this person has a pretty healthy wallop of 309 points, that would have done it, except that the green help from Mercury in this particular chart's case of 496, which is a huge amount. I think 600 is the maximal here. Anyways, 500 is very rare. So this gets a lot of help. So it more than negates all the negative stuff. So Venus comes out just shining at the end of the day because all they needed was 380 points. Each planet needs a slightly different amount. With the Mercury at 420, Jupiter for 390, Venus at 370, the Sun gets 360, Mars and Saturn need 300 points. So you can see Saturn's not very happy in this chart here. And the Moon also needs 360, I believe. Do not quote me on that. That's why I have things to look up for. But in any case, that's why the software alerts me and flashes there. No, I'm joking. But in any case, the numbers come up and they definitely have a lot of meaning, which means that this particular person is quite capable, except when they're not. And it's in this particular case that it's the struggling, sitting by yourself, doing the hard, burdensome, menial work that is required anything great to occur in the world. So having a functional Saturn helps you to do the things that make you a great person in this world. So this person is going to have to work a little harder to express all the other rest of the greatness that they have, because procrastination. So that's a psychology, a habit that can derail the most capable person. And so many other things could do that too. And it isn't it interesting that an otherwise very, very capable person can be waylaid, just laid low by an emotion, sadness, grief, anger, many other things. They can just, become incapable. Like, I don't feel like it. And that's not going to happen.
Well, I
Doesn't
mean,
matter how skilled they are.
I mean, we can look at some of the greats throughout history. I mean, look at Van Gogh. Van Gogh was an amazing painter, great artist, brilliant mind, but was tormented and haunted by extreme depression.
Yep. And not appreciated at all in his time.
Right. He was considered to be a joke during his time.
Mm-hmm. And now we have whole sections of museums, if not whole museums, devoted to his quite excellent work. I rather like the Van Gogh.
Absolutely.
And a very tortured person, and one that we actually studied in class, along with a lot of other psychological things.
I was going to say that just hit me the way that you was talking about that, about how this person is very gifted in every area except for, they're haunted or tormented by, something that makes them not see their full potential at that point in time.
They may be too busy licking their wounds and thinking about how them people done me wrong and they should have never ever done that, and they never ever get up from that blow, that set down of life. And it might be enough to set them back in life quite a bit, but dust yourself off and get up, because there's a long race that's called life. And we can see the fruits of your long life by looking at a different divisional chart called the D10, the see the great fruits of you, of how, what will you be known for? Maybe infamously, but how will people know you, and then how, by how much rather, and as well. So very interesting there. I should also point out that there are 16 of these divisional charts, of which I've mentioned the D9 and D10 at this point. But there are 16 of these, including the very, very beginning natal chart. The first chart is the first divisional chart. And depending on how we slice it up and where the planets end up being in those slices, it creates a whole different picture. That's a more zeroed in view of life. But before we break off into pulling up the Kala software and looking at that situation, we'll actually look at my chart. Woo! Scandalous. But we'll look at the different things and we'll see how that looks, and how we can see a lot of things right off the bat just by glancing at things, by knowing what a few things mean, and seeing different patterns occurring, because this is the science of light. This is Jyotish. And it's really, that's a science of vibration, a science of how light expresses itself in the universe, which I would say is the basic fundamental block, that this is a holographic universe and that all these things are merely made of different solidified bits of energy. Call that light. But in that energy, there has to be, it would be random and chaotic if there wasn't some kind of a pattern, some kind of a meaning to it. And it's the underlying pattern of life that sets the tone for the energy. And this is what we can track lifetime after lifetime. Yes, we can find out what you were doing in a previous life and see it in the chart. Not my area of specialties, but it is definitely possible. As much as it's possible to see what areas of your body are going to be well functioning or giving you some troubles, as it were. For instance, low functioning Venus will have hormonal issues and will lead to endocrine system issues. Um, okay. So the getting back to when the moon stars Venus, it's about feeling disappointed in the amount of nourishment that they receive, because they're a bit of a glutton for that nourishment. Now, I'll point out that nourishment can come in the form of food, stuffs in the world, which is a kind of physical nourishment. And for emotional nourishment, we need love, relationships and all that. So these two things are the fundamental nourishments that we seek out in the world. And the person that doesn't know how to appropriately get their needs met is going to be very disappointed, because they, in whatever they do receive, in either food or love, they're not satiated. It's just not enough. In anyone's love, there's just too much of a great need there, and that need's just not being met, even though the person is right there. They're giving that kind of love, but it just is somehow not enough for the individual. So the result is that of an emotional state that is dependent upon the ups and downs of their love life. Huh? Well, that certainly explains a lot of people. But we should mention that no human love will be satisfying, as it's not just human love that can satisfy all of our emotional needs. The individual will have to adapt to the object of their love, to that which they believe will fulfill their needs. Excuse me. To that which they fulfill their needs. The tendency will be there to see their needs as the needs of the partnership, and not realizing that the partnership's needs is all the parties together, and that your individual needs and that of the partner and the partnership are not at the same level, and they need to renew their capacity for affection with the situation. But that can be very difficult because the moon is starving Venus. So these individuals need to evaluate and learn that their relationship is actually, yeah, look at it, compare it to 5 of your friends. Your relationship's actually pretty good. You may think that it's not, it's not doing it for me, but look at it objectively, really step back and start checking off what's going on here, and you'll find out that your relationship, person with moon and Venus, is actually pretty good and probably not worth trading in. Instead, you should learn to turn down your expectations a little bit and put things into perspective and appreciate what you currently have, which could be rather good. Now, that's not to say that if you're in a bad relationship, you should just, suffer through it a little bit longer. No. But what I'm saying is that if you think your relationship is not fulfilling all of the things and you want to possibly think about trading it in for another one, just take a good look at it. Be objective. So, as the kind of basic takeaway, so how we can fix this situation here, because not only is the person unable to get their nourishment in the bedroom, but they're not able to find the nourishment that they need on the actual dinner plate. Yeah, this affects your food. And as somebody that had this, I was called the king of condiments because I couldn't eat something that didn't have ketchup or sriracha or wasabi or something on there. It just had to have this. And in fact, it got to be such a thing that I would be taking my first bite after fixing the meal. I'd be taking my first bite when my wife is taking her last bite. I'm a running joke in our house because I had to fix it. Now, my wife is a good cook and she flavors things very nicely. Oh, but it's not sriracha. It's not got that zing on it. It's not perfect. Well, let me tell you, you ain't never going to make it perfect, nor does it really need to be perfect. You don't need to have your eggs perfect every time. As the monks say, hunger is the disease. Food is the medicine. Take your medicine. And stop making such a big deal of it, is what they're alluding to in that statement, is food. You don't need to make it, whoa, every time. No, it's good to have good food, and it's good to enjoy your food and to make it good for you, to have good food. But does it have to be perfectist every single time? Can you eat eggs without ketchup? I know. Try. Try, I say. Because, and this is what happened for me. Whenever I first, heard the class and this particular Logitati Avasta, which was fairly late in the whole process, I'm like, oh, great, Venus, here we are, second to last planet. This one hit me so hard because, again, I'm the king of condiments, and I didn't realize that I was insulting the chef almost every single time when I did that. And so for a long time, I'm talking months, I stopped. Right off. Almost cold turkey. I stopped doing the sriracha. Now it would come out and sit on the table like my whoopee and sit there like, yes, you can if you want to, but just try. And for about 6 weeks or so, was before the first time I was like, yeah, this could really use some sriracha. But otherwise, my eggs taste fine, thank you. And now that I've kind of gotten over it, and it's been a couple of years now, actually, it's optional now. And I can choose to have a little bit of ketchup or sriracha or something on my eggs, or maybe just enjoy them the way they are. Maybe have pancakes without a whole bunch of syrup on top. It tastes pretty good, just saying. So, in the same way that we can have a different relationship with the nourishment that we get from food, there needs to be a different relationship we get from the nourishment that we get from love. Because if you're not satisfied with what's going on, and it's got to be like this, and it's got to be, swings and whips and I don't know, whatever. If it's not jazzy, I'm not interested. Again, are you trying to make things perfect when they're already plenty good enough as it is? And in this case, like I mentioned way in the beginning, this is Tom Cruise's situation. And he couldn't find satisfaction with a Nicole Kidman. Maybe a kind of a dated reference, but look at the gray hairs, y'all. But in any case, it happened, and it was a pretty good relationship. And I'm pretty sure Nicole Kidman is a wonderful person. But unfortunately, because of Tom Cruise's moon starving his Venus to a really high degree, it made him into a person that couldn't see that as satisfying and good enough. So he's still searching, and he may have found that, maybe not. Maybe he knows this by now, hopefully. But in any case, this can affect everybody, and you can remedy this. There is a way to fix this here. As as with anything, Venus is the everything outside of ourselves, and the moon is what we need to give to ourselves. So a good moon helps a person, especially a woman, to be fulfilled within herself, whereas the male energy, as it were, needs to act and accomplish things that are outside themselves to find fulfillment. So in this case, for a woman to be in touch with her feminine, that would be when they would be in touch with their moon. And as I mentioned before, the moon is the all-knowing wisdom. So when a woman is in touch with that, it gives them the natural ability to have intuition, which is kind of a compass that helps a woman make it through life and to be in the right situations at the right times, to have the right things happen, and for life to work out for them. That's not always the case for everybody, and sometimes a woman's picker is going in the wrong direction. It gives a false reading, as it were. And men can also have a similar situation going on here. But if you can get in touch with that and make that happen, then it's a way to make your way through life, and to make life work for you. And I should point out that there's a feminine side in men too. So it's not like you don't have access to the intuitive side. You just have to work a little harder at it. And it will become much more a part of your life as you pass your 40s, into your 40s. For a woman who's relying upon her moon most of her life, will suddenly have to work with the sun more, the testosterone and so on in her life. Whereas with men who are using their sun to get through life, and suddenly they have to rely upon the estrogen and emotions and whatnot of real living, and so they have to then get in touch with their feminine side at a certain point. So if a woman, in this case, has a low functioning sun, then she may get lost in her 40s and might end up sitting on a couch and just, binge watching, or whatever the case. Just kind of lost her drive and purpose in life. And same can happen for men that don't have the greatest either sun score, or in this case, moon score, because they're unable to get in touch with their particular feelings, and thus they're not quite aware of what they need to be working on and working toward. They don't know what should be worked with. It's kind of tragic. I will say that there are good things that can come about as a result of these planets here, because you do see that there are good indicators, green numbers, as it were. And I mentioned Mercury delighting Venus, which in this particular chart is quite a lot at 496.8 points. But it's this ability of Mercury delighting Venus gives Venus the great ability to interact, exchange, and communicate with the world in such a way to create win-win situations with whomever they engage. So just to step back for a moment, let's just juxtapose that to the previous situation where it was a negative strategy of getting what you need despite the others, and that becomes a short-sighted situation where you will try to go get your needs met, and the person's like, yeah, no, not enough. It's used up. You took too much. You couldn't allow things to be as they were. So that's the negative strategy that prevents your potential energies from flowing correctly in the world. Recognize that. Stop doing those things. And also recognize the good strategies in the world, like Mercury delighting Venus, which is using our skills at getting our needs met while being conscientious about the others that are around you. Very important. Again, we want to create the win-win situation with whoever, anybody that they engage with. Because if I win, I get something out of it, and you get something out of it, we're probably going to want to do that again. We're probably going to want to interact, have a business relationship or a romantic relationship or any kind of relationship. We're probably going to want to do it again if we are happy at the end of the process. But if we feel like we're getting shanked, you can only do that for so long. And some people will. But again, don't stick in a bad relationship for too long. But things can turn around. You know, life is a long game. So, Mercury delighting Venus people are very skilled at getting their needs met while being conscientious to see that the needs of the others are equally met, which I would say is the key to a good relationship. So, take note of this. People that don't have enough of Mercury's delighting the Venus, and you can introduce a whole new habit in your life. You can go, whoa, geez, relationships where I get something and the other person gets something and we want to do it again might work. And it does work. This is a good strategy for making your life, the potential energy in life, express itself in a way that's going to be good for you and good for those around you. That'll work in the long term. And that's exactly what we're looking for here, is to take all of the red boxes and erase them, make them lower, and take all the green boxes and erase them and make them higher numbers in there. We can work with this part because, again, this is the part of astrology that we have some say over, because this is the part of you that's your habits. And you run across those every single day.
So, Kris, I have a question for you then. How do we know now what those numbers represent? Because you said this is representative of at birth. So, is there a way to look at this as to what those numbers would be present day?
Perhaps. Perhaps. Now, I will state for the record that astrology as it stands today is not as good as it could be. Meaning that it's thousands and thousands of years old, and some of the best stuff is thousands and thousands of years old. But in that intervening time frame, societies have changed. Not as much as you'd like to think, though. But societies do change, and different customs and different ways of doing things. Also, during those intervening centuries, we had stuff like the Dark Ages and medieval times and book burnings and all kinds of
A great loss of
problems.
information and stuff as well.
A horrendous loss of information. The Library of Alexandria and so many other things. The killing off of elders who held all the secrets in their head verbally. A lot has been lost, but fortunately we do have those persistent Akashic records, so don't take some heart, y'all. Nothing is truly lost. And a lot of these things can be found out. Now, I will say that we currently, like one example of how we do things differently nowadays, currently we track things by the birth time, whenever you emerge from your mother and take that first breath. That marks the birth point, and that's what this chart shows. However, back in the day, they actually tracked it from the conception time. It's a little personal, in my opinion, but hey, and it probably shows us a much greater in-depth situation for what's going on. Now, quick little aside, a little astrological story here, and this may or may not be true, so grain of salt time, y'all. But Alexander the Great, in quotes, some people don't think he's so great, but that Alexander that went through and made Alexandria and the Library of Alexandria and all that kind of stuff, he had a father. Hey, you know what? He had a father who was an astrologer, actually. And it's said that that his father chose the exact time to have conception with his mother to produce a world conquering emperor. However, I mean, maybe he succeeded at that, but however, he didn't see that that son would actually end up killing him anonymously. And that's exactly what happened. Alexander put his own father to death, not realizing that it was his father, and probably wouldn't have cared either. Like, yeah, kill him anyway. But I can't say. I don't know. And I'm not even sure if this is a true story, but it is something that um, certainly could have happened. And it illustrates the power of astrology to be able to choose the best time to begin anything. Now, I before I diverge off into these little charts here, I just wanted to point out that to finish up this with Mercury and Venus here, that this would, if you have a strong score in this indicates a person that has charm, grace, and worldly understanding to get what they want from the world. But for a woman, in a woman's chart, this means that she'll be lucky and that she'll be able to ask her partner to take care of household duties, etc., without the guy feeling, quote, nagged. In fact, he may feel happy to do what she wants him to do. If you don't have a lot of points in this here, you may ask, and the person may feel nagged, and that's certainly, it's probably the worst thing for a man to be told what to do. Now, it's the worst thing for a woman to call her a name. So just be aware that women telling your man what to do might not work out so great. You got to kind of cajole and work with him and suggest it. Hey, wouldn't it be a great idea? All that kind of stuff. But to go at it directly, to tell him what to do, it's the equivalent of telling a woman a name. And she won't forget it, and well, he'll take it hard as well in the different circumstances. And the woman also would, in this case, know the true value of objects, friendships, and relationships. Now, in a man's chart, this person will be lucky in that they know how to make life work for him externally, and it has skills and worldly knowledge about things. And thus, he'll be able to provide a lot to the relationship by being a skilled and capable person. That goes a long way. Not just a person that's there to open the pickle jar when it's, hard, but actually capable in a multitude of situations. No need to really go on with that. So let's stop that share for just a moment, because I wanted to shift gears to something that I use every day. No, really, every single day. And I keep it in a nice plastic bag to keep it all organized, because what we're looking at here is a calendar and also a report that gives me the auspicious times and days to begin things. Now, no, it's not much to see, believe me. It's just a bunch of numbers and so on.
It's really hard to see on the camera right now, honestly. It kind of whites it all out.
Well, that's not as much to look at there, and perhaps I'll be able to find and talk at the same time my particular calendar.
I was going to say, if you have my calendar on up where you can pull it up, feel free to pull my calendar up and show it.
Well, I have your calendar.
Yeah,
So
I don't
let's go
mind if you
ahead.
show my calendar.
Very good, sir. I appreciate that. So we'll go ahead and show this month for a share screen. So this is the month of August for your calendar, Josh. Thank you for giving us permission to look at it. I look at mine every single day. Now, each one of these categories means something slightly different. You'll notice that there are, let's find a good heavy day here. There's well-being, path is possible above that. There's an associates kind of a day, a fortune, co-creation, marriage, greatness, fate, mobility, fulfillment, knowledge, strengths, health, and love. Now, that's a lot of mouthful, a lot of different terms and so on. And each one of these things means something slightly different, and I'll go over a couple of them to give some of the flavor here. Now, looking at today's day, you have a 2 love star. So that's a good one to start with. Now, I should first of all point out that the number in front is from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 is the possible. So it could be 0 love star, or 0 love, or 2 love as no star as it is up here. So the
Now
2
is
love.
just real quick, Chris. 6 being the highest number possible,
5.
or 5. Okay, so from 0 to 5. So with 5 being like that would be the optimal. That would be an amazing day for that field.
For that particular field. Now, I'll individually speak about individual ones here, but whenever you have a particular day that's got a lot of stuff going on there, it doesn't mean that you're going to have just 8 different things that are cool that day. One associates thing, one fortune thing. No, it's probably going to be a kind of a blending. That your associates and your fortune, your good luck, your relationship to things, your marriage is going to be supportive of you that day. I should point out that this is the looking forward to it, quote unquote, calendar that's available on my website, which I'll show in just a moment here. This is a calendar that comes from my teacher's website because he didn't share this one with us, but it's a wonderful technique, and it's only a $25 calendar for a whole year of all the best days. Now, it doesn't show the negative days and the all that, because it would just be so overwhelming. But all the good days are listed off here. So the blank days might be all right, or just kind of humdrum days, or they could be, well, kind of tear-jerking kind of days, and really stressful days. But the ones where you have a lot of points in, especially the star, which indicates a special confluence of those particular things. So it's saying, yeah, definitely this day you're going to feel the love. Now, in this case, love is the days for meeting someone new or for having a loving experience with your current partner. So today's a great day to have a conversation with your partner, in their case, sir. Now, I particularly like the days that are fulfillment days. Well, those are good days too, but the well-being days is what I meant to say. And the well-being, which is the kind of khaki color here, are days that indicates events that help you to fulfill your responsibilities and find satisfaction in your life. These are 2 important things necessary to feeling that life is working well in your favor. These can be days of career accomplishment, good financial days, or days that you develop or discover some resource that helps you manage your material affairs. Hey, that's groovy and stuff, but personally, it feels like a good day. Like I feel well that day. My body's not achy and cranky. Everything's working fine. I really like well-being days, and yeah, there can be some good career days where things kind of work out in my favor, as it were, on the job site. I like more the strength days for that and the greatness days for those sorts of things, because if I'm having a strength or a greatness day, it doesn't matter. I can throw myself at any job, at any task, even a hard one like cutting the lawn. Oh, anyway, a really big task is something that's big for you in your life. On a strength day, yes, you can, and you're gonna feel okay. It's not gonna kill you in the process of doing that. Also, a health day would bolster you and keep you alive and healthy. And I'm always saying that because in my particular situation, I have a not so great Saturn and I have health issues, including a bad back. And oh, don't we know that, sir? How a bad back can ruin your day.
Oh yes, because I have been dealing with back issues this week myself. I pulled a muscle in my back on Monday, and
Oh,
yeah.
well, we all give you blessings of healing and quick recovery, sir,
Thank
please.
you. It's doing much better already. I've been taking the time to rest and just take care of the
That's
back
the
and
key.
everything. So
Well, I will say that if you have an afflicted Venus, if the Venus score is a little bit lower than it should be, your ability to rest, you don't know how. So you have to kind of work at not doing things. That's a key. That doesn't mean laying in bed and looking at a tablet or something, resting kind of a thing. But in any case, the ability to rejuvenate, to regenerate your batteries is less than it should be, all of y'all with a lower Venus score. So you need your rest. You need to recuperate your energizer within you. Um, so on days that you have the knowledge days, that's another one that I really, 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 really enjoy because I have a wealth of knowledge. I consider that's one of my greatest, you know, bank accounts of something that I can use is my knowledge. And on a knowledge day like tomorrow, no, Saturday, the 21st, you have a 3 knowledge star. So on that day, I'm going to bet that you come across something, you watch a video, you come across something, just something kind of just, and you're like, oh, wow, that's the neatest thing ever. And then the next day or shortly thereafter, you will use that knowledge and it will make you look like a rock star, or something along these lines. Like you will want that knowledge. And or the other way that this flavor shows up that I've personally noticed is that knowledge days are days where I can study. Now, some days it's not a study day. It's just kind of
oh,
a struggle.
trust me, I know those not a study days. It's where you sit there and you're reading through your book and you've read the same paragraph 3 times and you're like, I still don't understand what it says because I just not
I'm
comprehending
not
it.
any
No,
closer.
yeah, it's no matter how many times I read it, it's just not clicking.
Exactly.
It's just
So,
too many things going on in the brain, keeping everything from functioning right.
mhm, too aware of that, sir.
A
Believe me.
needy little dog constantly wanting to get up in your face because he doesn't like that you have a book and not him.
hmm All of these things are factors not supporting your knowledge, not supporting your ability to, um, as it puts here, develop deep understanding on a subject important to you or gain insights into something that you need to understand. These are days for good things to happen with respect to your education. It's
So
a
Tanner,
wonderful thing for everybody.
so Tanner,
You
that
pay
means
attention on Saturday.
that means on Saturday you need to leave me alone as I'm studying.
And you can plan to study that day. You can plan your days around these good events. Now, that's kind of how I like to use this thing. Because I know that whether I plan it or not, on those days are going to be some great days where I'll meet somebody, I'll interact with something. The YouTube guru will give me the video that I need to see, or whatever it is. Something is going to happen on that day where it's an extraordinary kind of a day. And if you as you look back through your month and as you continue to go through the year of your calendar, sir, see that that's not the case. That you feel exactly just this way. That you feel the love today for instance, from all of us that are giving you, sending you all the vibes and all the good stuff here. You know, see that you don't feel that way, and see that it doesn't continue for the other days, like next week, starting
I got
Saturday,
a great
Sunday, and
week
Monday.
coming.
Yes, sir. So you should definitely plan your interviews, your phone calls on Monday and Tuesday. Oh, yeah. You know, these are going to be some great days for you to accomplish things, for you to feel great, for your strengths to function. And blah, 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 blah. You're just going to really like it, especially Wednesday in this regard, because of all the stars. Stars are the key to it, although don't just look for that. But the stars indicate when it's especially the case. So that's a great day to if you had an interview for a new job to come up, like, I'm sorry, I'm all booked up till Wednesday. And then that's the case. Then there's another report on my website, which I'm going to show in just a moment here, which you really can't see the report because too much light in here. But in any case, there's something called a Maherta, which is otherwise known as the Hori, Horay, Hori astrology, or otherwise mundane, because it's indicated it's indicative of simple everyday things that are happening in your life or not so. It's the technique for choosing the right time to begin things. You can begin the right thing at the wrong time, and I don't care what you've got going on for you. It ain't gonna work out so great. But if you start the thing at the right time, you got a shoestring budget, you don't know what's really happening, you don't know where you're going, you'll succeed, or has a greater chance thereof. So this Maherta helper, which I'm holding in my hand here,
Hold on, let me go back
indicates.
to that. Go back to that
Mhm,
camera away from the shared screen.
indeed. So there we are. Again, on this calendar, which is a different calendar, this is the Maherta calendar, and you can choose, like I have, to there's a half dozen things that you can choose from, and you can choose the times of day that you want to have things occur. Like I sleep, so I don't want to be doing things at the midnight hour, but you can just leave it from 24 hours, and you can choose this calendar if you want to see when to start things for legal cases, for having a child, for starting a new business venture, or in this case, in this particular report, is good things, auspicious things. So it's just a general thing that if I start a project or a thing in these little windows of time, which sometimes can be only 10 minutes, and then another couple days, and then maybe an hour, and then maybe a day, and then maybe half an hour. You know, they're tiny little slices of time. And I couldn't begin to think about how people would have made this up way back 3,000 some odd years ago. That's caveman era to our perspective. Whenever we were scratching things out and making fire and bashing women on the head and all, no, none of that. But that was that era, and we were really sophisticated, it seems. Now, there's also all sorts of signs that point toward us being kind of not so great and barbaric, but there are parts of our knowledge that are really, really, really important and special to keep. And these ones are part of that, because this allows us to pick the right time to do anything and have it come out as a more or a complete success. And it has a score indicator from 0, 1 to 9. 1 to 9. So you could pick the best time of the day if there's multiple choices to get the most advantageous thing. So I picked a day ahead that has some good calendar indicators, and I picked the time based upon this for my next interview, for my next contract, as it were, because I wanted to go on a good note. And that's why I use these on an everyday basis. So, as we want to wrap things up here rather soon, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen one more time
Alrighty.
and show off my website, which is newly minted. And this is astrologicalhealing.me. There's several things on here, including our services, some information under the glossary page, and the astrology reports. That's what we were just talking about, is the astrology reports. There's the looking forward to a calendar is here. I utilize the select the best period for any event to generate the second calendar. And between those two things on a daily basis, I kind of navigate and know if I'm going to have a great day or if it's going to be more of a watch out, keep just try to get it done. Don't try to for anything above that. But on days when I have associates showing up, my coworkers just come and they take care of it. I almost don't have to come to work on those days because the associates are handling most of the things. And again, those are just wonderful, wonderful days. And to know how to get that good job is by choosing the right date to have and time to have the interview. And you can know that for $14.95. And the other calendar was for $24.95. And those are for 1 year apiece for each one of them. There is also a 5-year money calendar, which I'm currently testing out. I'm making my wife do this particular one, and we're buying lottery tickets on the fortune days whenever there's money there. Hey,
let me
Papa
know
needs a new car.
Hey, let me know how that goes.
Oh, we're testing it. And believe me, like all the things that I do talk about with any individual client or collectively, I have tested these things in my chart and so many other charts, and I just it's so reproducibly accurate. We're talking 80%, give or take. I mean, not everyone's
Right.
perfect, but there are some really good readings that really seem to just punk, hit the mark.
And one thing I do want to comment on before we go off the air here in a little bit.
Yes,
on
sir.
that calendar that you showed of mine, you told me that depending on the birth time, that could be off a day or two either way.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, sir. And yes, the birth time is absolutely important. You need to check that birth time on your birth certificate. If it's there, sometimes it's not. Really unfortunate. But sometimes your mother doesn't quite remember the birth time. She remembers the birth event and all that labor, but she doesn't remember what time it was because she was in labor. Give her a break. But in any case, your birth certificate, it needs to be as perfect as it can be. And within 2 minutes or 5 minutes rather, is about the amount of perfection. So if it's not perfect, and we can rectify that, we can fix that. If it's not perfect, something that indicates to be happening on a Tuesday may actually be felt on a Wednesday, or the vice versa. It's supposed to be happening on a Wednesday, but you seem to have a great day on a Tuesday if the birth time is not quite perfect, because every 2 hours the ascendant changes, and every 2 seconds something is changing in that chart. And that's why twins have slightly different lives. They're very similar, but there's different, like one person will have a good day on this day, and then on Wednesday the other person will have it, or to that degree. But there's an eerie similarity between their lives and anybody who is born within that time period. But it's those extra fine divisions that will make the difference between one person born in the hospital and another person born in the same hospital at the same time. They're different people. And on that note, sir, we'll go ahead and end it here. I do appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to have this chance here. I would like to do a quick chance to wrap things up, but I'll give you an
Absolutely.
opportunity to say things.
Yeah, let me go ahead and just wrap things up. First off, I want to say thank you, Kris, for being a guest here tonight and being on the show and giving us some of your time to discuss things with us. I want to let people know that on Tuesday the 24th, we're going to have Demetra Burby with us. I do, I do not have the topic written down in my book, but I'll have to look that up. I will get back with you guys on what the topic is for that night. It looks like we're going to be doing a special show on the 25th with Liz Foy, which is a Wednesday. We're going to be doing that show at 7 p.m. And on the 26th, we are going to have Lori Kimmerly back. She was originally supposed to be on the show on the 5th, and we had to cancel that show for some personal reasons. So she's going to be back on the 26th. And then I want to let everyone know that on the 31st, we are going to be continuing that conversation that we started off this month with Demian Gover and Melvin Nix on spiritual hijacking. We're going to be continuing that series. And that conversation, we just wasn't able to get everything in that night that we wanted to. So we started off the month with that conversation. We're going to finish it up with that conversation. So that's what we have coming up here in the next couple weeks on Breaking Reality. And once again, I want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. And also, Kris, like I said, thank you so much for your time and everything that you have put into the show and stuff. And thank you for my charts and stuff that you've done for me as well.
Certainly, it's my pleasure. And if I might just do a quick chant before we end things off here, I wanted to make a quick chant to do the bodhicitta and to give all of the blessings to everybody so that all beings could be benefited, all beings could be free, all beings could be happy and know the cause of happiness. This is a rough translation. Ge mandinyo duda che che sala goparju. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and have a good night and be blessed. And we will see you next week. Goodbye.